for 17 years and principal for 4 of those years. This year has been one of our toughest years with us being moved out of the kindergarten building. We started our year getting moved out of the kindergarten building. We actually had started school and then found out the poor air quality in there did not allow us to use the building any longer. So we had to cancel kindergarten for a few days, and all of the teachers had to move their stuff after just setting up classrooms into our building. We were able to do that with taking out a computer room, taking out a couple of rooms where we were teaching small groups, so our intervention groups, our extension groups, our counselor that used it, any sort of meetings that were happening in those rooms. So it really, space has been a major concern, just not having any.
The challenges that I have run into and am running into is transporting food, sometimes up to 5 times a day. We actually start out at our storage unit. Our storage unit is not connected to the kitchen. So in the mornings, especially in the winter mornings where it's below 30, we go out in the storage unit and we have a side-by-side gator where we put all our food in for the day. We transport it to the kitchen, we unload it on a cart, and then around 9 o'clock in the morning, the girls will load everything back up on the gator and take it to the high school multipurpose room, and they start setting up for lunch. We do breakfast too. We transport food over there for breakfast every morning as well. If something happens to the gator, we have to take it over manually. And the winters are very, very challenging for us. If the students would be able to eat in the cafeteria, which we have, our cafeteria is set up for eating. The classrooms are set up for learning and teaching. And the classrooms also have carpet. So by kids going back to their classroom and eating, there is not enough physical time in between to get everything cleaned like it's supposed to. Also in the kitchen, there needs to be a lot of renovation done. Our floor is buckling right now. For safety, we have to work around that.
I'm an enrichment and intervention specialist, so I have small groups of kids. These groups might be working on a skill that they haven't yet mastered, or they could be an extension group that's going into an extra challenge. We combined classrooms this year, so instead of having the location that I did have for my groups, I'm in a corner of another classroom. So I'm carrying my supplies in and out, trying to not be obtrusive in the activities that are going on within that classroom. I've had to consolidate my supplies dramatically in this move, so I have about a 6x10 spot that's packed full of the resources that I need. And the hallway groups are having a little bit of difficulty based on the space. We are in entryways, we are in hallways with other groups. There's passing of people in the hallway, doors opening, weather coming in. Kids are working on their computers, sitting down on the floor. So it's been pretty challenging.
So a lot of our groups are working in the hallways now because we don't have space in a classroom. We have tables that have to be pushed out into those hallways, and if there were some sort of emergency, there really isn't the space to get students through that hall. Also, they're sitting right in doorways. They may be sitting on the carpet in front of a door just to make enough room to have a small group happening. The kindergarten building at the beginning of the year, when we found out about the air quality, that was the 3rd day of school for this school year. So at that point on Friday, we had to cancel school. It ended up being the next week that kindergarten couldn't come. So their 2nd week of coming to school, they were not able to come. We had to cancel and move them rooms. Now also those 3 kindergarten teachers are separated on 3 opposite areas of our building. So as far as their communication, it's difficult for them to meet, for kids to switch classrooms if we need to do that for reading groups. It's caused quite a bit of difficulty just with the teachers working together and being able to share those students. Previously, when we had the kindergarten building, we were able to have a few spaces for meetings like IEP meetings, or if we had social workers that might come in, we had some classroom space that was private to have those meetings. Now we're doing that in this office, so we may have occupational therapists, speech pathology in here, special education teacher, classroom teacher, parents, all meeting in this small office space, and especially electrical. There may be 2, at most 3 plugins in a classroom with up to 25, 27 students. Trying to integrate technology into a classroom is difficult when you only have 3 plugins in a classroom. We have breakers tripping almost daily due to things being plugged in. We have power strips that I'm sure are also a safety concern. Currently we have 1 nurse for the whole district, so it's a K-12 district. We have over 800 students, and she is in our building in the elementary. So students come over to this building to see the nurse. They have to leave high school or middle school to see the nurse if they're in those buildings. And she has 1 small room that has 1 bed in it, so 1 sick child can be in that room. So if we have more than that, especially over here in the elementary that may be vomiting, we have them sitting right either outside of my office, which is by the main office as well. So we've had up to 3, 4 children that may have a garbage can in front of them that are sick. Safety and security is something that we've discussed a lot in our district. We do have an SRO, and some of the concerns that we've discussed with him are our entrances. We have several entrances in all of our buildings, and it's hard to even identify the main entrance. We don't have a secure area when guests are coming in. We do have a small camera at this time, but the secretary is not even able to see who is out at that front door from where she is seated. So safety is definitely a concern, and with all of the access available to our buildings and students having to travel between buildings, there's some safety and security concerns. In elementary, there are several of our parents that pick up students and drop off students in the morning. So our front parking lot really doesn't have a good traffic flow. We have parents pulling in and backing out while students are walking into the building. With all of those parents picking up students, it's a concern in our parking lot. One of the updates I would like to see is a better traffic flow out there for the safety of our students.
One of the biggest impacts of not having a classroom is that our school is so fortunate we have a lot of instruments for the kids to play, and they don't travel well on my cart. The bigger the instrument, the more the kids like to play it, and that just doesn't work with the cart. We also like to do a lot of dancing, and in my classroom I had a circle on the floor, so we had lots of room for moving. And now without a classroom, there's always desks and chairs and tables to move in order to get space to do anything. And that's time lost from our music classes. They're still doing lots of singing and playing of other instruments as well. So we have not lost music. It's just a little bit harder, and not having the tools that I'm used to having. You have to totally change how you teach when you lose your classroom. Your stuff isn't there. Making sure I have a sound system that is going to work, and is my Bluetooth going to connect, and those are just some little issues that I normally didn't have to worry about when I had the classroom. When I teach the middle school choir, I'm in the math classroom, so he was very gracious and let us move a piano in there, but we still have the chairs that are attached to the desk. That does not work well for singing at all. There are times when I have students come in at recess or before school or after school to do either some private tutoring, or we have an honor choir where they have to audition and then they come and meet, and I don't know where to meet this year. We'll figure it out, but that's a problem. Kids playing recorders. I hate to say, but we're torturing everybody in the school this year with recorders. Even in my office, if I have one-on-one students, it's a little loud for everybody else. One thing about having to teach in other people's classrooms is that I have a certain discipline system and they have a certain discipline system, and they don't always match exactly, and so the kids are confused as to who do I listen to if the teacher's in the room, and so that's an issue as well.
So when we moved over to the other building, we had to get rid of a computer lab. We had another room where we used it for a lot of small group lessons and things like that, and then we also had a title room. And the title room that's the room that I am in, and I actually have to share the room with the title teacher, and she now has her groups that she works with out in the hallway. Well, sharing a room when you're teaching kindergarten is kind of challenging because we have a lot of adults and a lot of kids coming in and out all the time. Also, a lot of the title supplies and books and things are still in the classroom that I'm in. And so other teachers are coming in constantly to get things, resources and things like that. And so there's a constant disruption throughout the day. And that makes it challenging with 5 and 6 year olds because anything's shiny over here and they're looking that way. It's been really hard being away from my teaching team. So there's 3 kindergarten classrooms and we are spread all over the building right now. So now that we're in this building, since our classrooms are spread so far apart, it makes transition time, trying to get the kids from one point to another, makes it challenging. There's a lot of time lost of instruction when we're trying to get these little guys moved from one room to another, and we don't get to do as many kindergarten as a whole things together because we're so far apart. So previously, we would do what's called walk to read, and our students were receiving reading instruction based on their level. And now it's impossible for us to do that being spread throughout the school. And so now we're having to keep our own kids, and we're not able to do as much based on those levels that the kids need to be taught at because of the transitioning and that sort of thing.
Through some effort on a lot of people's parts, we actually managed to get the food carted over here into our multi-purpose room, which is also shared with wrestling, community meetings, and everything else. So they are able to eat, at a decent time, more conducive to a lunchtime. But it's still not a great situation in that the food is still being carted over here. And also, as far as lunch and food services go, we still have a number of kids that eat out in the lobby. The multi-purpose room / lunchroom, space-wise, it gets kind of iffy as far as getting everybody in there. So right now, we actually had to shut down part of, the high school computer lab that was over there for another group, our YBGR CSCT group, because once the issues with the kindergarten building happened, they got displaced, and so that was the easiest way we could do that was to close down our section of that library. There's one primary entrance out here on the southeast corner. There is no line of sight for the high school office to that front door. We do have a little buzzer system, which the camera system isn't that great on it in the first place. We did have an individual who worked his backside off basically to get a large grant that has supplied us with some tremendous cardio equipment, some tremendous weight room equipment. And as it currently sits, they're in 2 different locations. And so it's difficult for teachers to utilize both at the same time, and with the ideas that are coming out, this cardio room, weight room area would be community accessible along with another portion of the building. So there is a tremendous value into creating one designated area for that equipment. But a media center would have access for community members as well. And we've been hearing about that for a number of years. Could we get access to the library? And as it currently sits too, it's not that accessible for community members.
So that's one of the things that they're really trying to address for the high school and for the middle school, is to make sure that we have adequate science rooms, that we can do labs and we can do those kind of things that these kids need to know to be successful when they go to high school as well as on into the universities and stuff. But we have to make some improvements. We really have to. There hasn't been improvements in gyms or anything like in 20 years. Our locker rooms in the middle school, there's no lockers in there. They're basically just, there's just a couple benches and whatever, and the showers, or there's a few, we just make some upgrades. That if it comes down to, if we've got a good applicant, it comes down and they've already applied in Billings, which they do, and they're applying here, and they come out and we tour them, or you go to a brand new school in Billings, plus they pay more money, it's hard to win that teacher.
Shepherd is an amazing community. It's an amazing school. I love the community out here and how tight and how close everybody is. And it's such an amazing school and an amazing place to teach at.
That's one of the reasons that I enjoy Shepherd and stay here is I feel like we give those kids the best education we can. We take these kids to Rocky and all these other areas to get to, and we always hear how well behaved these kids are. And that's on parents. That's because parents are doing their job.
I'm very lucky to work with such great staff, and they've made things work here with the situation that we're in and the lack of space. And the kitchen staff, works with what they have and making sure they can transport food back and forth. We have great families in Shepherd. That's one of the reasons I've been here for so long, is that I get to see them go all the way from kindergarten and graduate high school, and a lot of them going on to college.
I tremendously enjoy working at Shepherd. The kids are fantastic, and I've had the opportunity to see them grow and develop over the years. The staff is amazing. We're focused on making the most amount of growth for each student. So I really hope that we can provide these kids a warm and comfortable place to learn every day.
People don't have access to our kids that should not throughout the day, I think is huge and important. If nothing else, that should be a #1 reason why this bond needs to be passed.
In the future, it would be really beneficial for not only the rest of the school, but our kindergarten team as well, to have the ability to have our classrooms back together so that we can have access to one another, so that we can better plan for teaching our kids and better level our groups, whether it's reading or math or anything. And we're 100% student focused out here, and right now the building issue is making it really challenging.
Over time, whether it's with things that happen in buildings or classrooms, we always make do. And that's what the perception is. Well, they can make do. They made do before, or it was good enough for me, it's good enough for them. But the problem is it's not good enough anymore. Society isn't what it was when I was in high school, or necessarily when you were in high school either. So, we need to update things, and the only way we can do that is through some facility restructure. So it's time to get past that idea of, okay, they can make do, because we can't make do anymore.